Yeah, sir. Can you get that camera out of here? Quit following me around. I swear, man, these guys are such tools around here. Oh man, what's going on, golf addicts? DB here, the Tour Junkies. I'm harnessing I'm harnessing my BDE. You know, my big dick energy, my big Bryson energy. You know what I mean? But it's a good time, man. It's a good time. Welcome to the show. It's the Tour Junkies for the Workday Charity Open. I got my boy Pat Perry with me. You like my hat, Pat?
Not really, but
Yeah.
Does it have a snap in the front? Like, can you unsnap it and
No, it's
okay.
stitched.
All right.
It's stitched. Now I got to give a shout out to my boy Michael Caridi from Australia, otherwise known as Caridi. Caridi sent me this. He knew that I've got a Bryson DeChambeau bet to pay off. Now this is not me paying off the bet. I have got a much bigger plan in place. I've had a couple people ask me what's happening with that. I am planning something epic. So you guys know if I lose the Bryson impersonation bet, it's going to be, I am going to get my money's worth out of impersonating Bryson, but that takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. This is not our full-time job. So I do have the hat. I'm working on some other pieces of the wardrobe here. Shout out to Caridi for allowing me not to have to go to any register and buy this thing. I was really kind of dreading that. So it worked out.
That thing came all the way from Australia. I mean, that's
all the way from Australia. Yeah. So what if you wore it like this? This was like
Cobra,
a popular.
Cobra obviously thinks like you can wear it like that because they put Cobra across the back like that. Just so.
Wasn't this popular in like the 90s for people to wear hats like this? I feel like it was. I'm a Peaky effing blinder, Tim Gaiman says. Oh, I love that show. Peaky Blinders is such a great show. We are live on YouTube right now, and if you're watching live, you're seeing this, or if you watch it back, you're seeing this. I'm not wearing that thing the whole time. I can't take it, Pat. But we are live on YouTube. Shout out to everybody.
I'm glad you're taking that off because I don't want to look at that.
Yeah, it's hideous, but it is going to be a really good impersonation that I do. Trust me, it's going to be great. It's going to be huge. It's going to be great. It's going to be the best ever. I don't have a good Trump impersonation.
Your hair is now a little disheveled up there, just so you know.
Now before we're going to talk about podcast juice. I've got some new vodka in here, and I can't remember what it's called. No free ads. I got a big heavy Yeti pour here, and before I have anyone piss and moan about the noise, I needed a big heavy pour, and this was the biggest I could get. So if that bothers you, I'm sorry. What you got tonight, bud?
I got a little Tito's tonight with a little mixer, just kind of keeping it normal, nothing too crazy. I feel like it's going to be there's going to be a lot of Tito's this week because you and I are going to be hanging out a good bit over the long weekend for some golf. So
yeah, if you're following us on Instagram, especially more than like, you should be following us on Instagram. We're now over 30,000 followers on Instagram, which is pretty cool. If you're following us on Instagram, pay attention because we'll at least have some stories going on. But me and Pat's identical twin brother, Chris, who now guys things have kind of happened. Like Pat is almost now better looking than his brother, who has been better looking than Pat for a long time. DirecTV Perry. You could argue, one could argue that now bearded, slick back hair Pat, post-quarantine Pat may be the more handsome Perry brother. But me and Pat and then his brother and then Ben Little, the chalk bomb Ben, we'll be heading down to Hilton Head Island on Thursday. We're going to play a round of golf Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We're going to have some fun. I am not in a good headspace for that trip going into it right now.
You're not.
I have been playing some of the best golf of my life over the last maybe 6 weeks. And I played yesterday and I hit the ball as poorly as I've hit it in years. And I hurt my wrist. So I'm going ahead and making excuses right now. It is what it is. I'm still going to go and have a great time. If it comes down to it and all I'm doing is I'm not playing anymore, but I'm riding in the cart and I'm having some drinks and I'm videoing the fellas, then I'll just make it all about hashtag content. That's my plan. It's going to be a win-win no matter what. That's what I'm going to do.
Indeed.
It's going to be a good time. Yeah, make sure to follow us on that. I got to give a shout out. Somebody who should not be following that, but I got to give a shout out to our littlest junior junkies that enjoys listening to us. We got word today. His name is Lucas DeFrucio. Lucas DeFrucio, 3.5 years old. His dad, who we're gonna hear from a little bit later in the show tonight. His dad just won. He just turned like $390 into over $23,000, and he is a Nut Hut member, Mr. Scotty DeFrucio. But Lucas is a big fan of our intro song. Now, a lot of you people have made fun of the intro song, but forget you. You know what I mean? Because Lucas loves it, and I wanted to give a shout out to little Lucas. Thanks for listening, man. Apparently, Scotty says he knows every word to the intro song, and then hopefully Scotty. Great. Just lets him. I told Scotty I would give him a shout out before we got too far along into the Tito's, because now Lucas probably doesn't need to listen. He doesn't need to listen past the first 10 or 15 minutes.
It's time for the earmuffs at some point.
yeah. Earmuffs, Lucas. Earmuffs. Dad, I've been holding him on here for 45 minutes during the Tour Junkies podcast. Yeah, man, huge hit for Scotty D. Nut Hut member. We had another Nut Hut member a couple weeks ago. The first week back, finished second in the Millie Maker and win $225,000. It's been a very profitable week for a lot of folks, but there was some carnage. There's still some carnage. I mean, this is like, I think it's back-to-back weeks where less than like 4% of all Millie Maker lineups got 6 of 6 through. So if you're like, if you're kicking the can and kicking the dog and just getting pissed off that you can't get 6 of 6 through, listen. Not a lot of people are getting 6 of 6 through right now.
It's not happening. It's not happening.
It was basically play Bryson and a bunch of scrubs, and hopefully you hit it. And we've been talking about it. Listen, I mean, a lot of people have been talking about it, so it's not like we're some geniuses. But Bryson, we knew was coming. We saw it coming. You know, at least I've been banging the drum. I know you kind of waffled back and forth week to week, but you're still pretty much there in terms of we knew Bryson was gonna break one out here.
Oh yeah, soon. I mean, for me, it's you're a little concerned about ownership levels, which were high. He was the highest owned player last week, but it didn't matter. I mean, he did what he's supposed to do. He won the daggum tournament. He was the best player in the field, and he won. He was a favorite. So and look, I mean, he's probably going to be the favorite, if not right behind Rory. For every single major going forward. And for every tournament that he enters right now with the way he's playing. I mean, that's where we are with Bryson. Love him or hate him. I mean, that whole Saturday episode with him and the cameraman or whatever was just kind of ridiculous. I mean, it's like, and he tries so hard. Like, I heard him on an interview today with Brad Faxon, and he's just like, I just love everybody. And I want the PGA Tour to just show everybody and that they need to be liked and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, not everybody lives like that in a bubble where they like, you need to be shown, like everybody has to be liked. I mean, I get that, people are doing good in this world and we need to see good things. I want to see good things in this world and stuff like that. But, there's going to be criticism, Bryson. I mean, there's going to be people that don't like you or don't, I mean, and this is coming from somebody who likes to be liked. Like, I'm a guy that I hate when, like, if I'm in a fight with somebody or like, I just know that person doesn't like me. I can just tell, like, it just burns me up inside. But I'll say one thing TJ's taught me is a little thicker skin, not that much, but a little bit more thick skin. And so he's just got to, I mean, look, be himself. He's going to be Bryson, but the whole thing with the cameraman on Saturday was a little bit ridiculous in my eyes, but he freaking won the tournament, showed him up. So.
You know what? Of all the things being canceled right now, I say #cancel Bryson's personality is what I say. Like I do appreciate that what he's doing. I can respect it. I can appreciate it. He has found a magic potion and he's taken advantage of it. More power to him. And he is fun to watch. And like I've said oftentimes about Patrick Reed, golf needs a villain. And I'm fine with him being the villain. I love to hate Bryson. I absolutely love it. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not going to play him. Doesn't mean I'm not going to bet on him. Although now it's too late to bet on him. We talked about it before or maybe right when we came back from the break, getting him on for Masters and PGA Championship odds and all that stuff. Like now he's the favorite. So but I just, man, the guy could just use a massive dose of self-awareness, and to be so intellectual, and he is smart. I know he's smart. I'm not I know he's a smart guy, but man, he lacks a lot of self-awareness and like emotional intelligence. It's fun to watch. It's very fun to watch. So anyway, let's get into it though, buddy. We've got that. We've got also our buddy Travis Fulton is deciding to hook up a few listeners out there. So if you know Travis Fulton, we've had him on the podcast before. We wanted to throw this out to you. Now, he teaches people how to get better at real golf. We teach people fake golf. He teaches people how to get better at real golf. And he is offering his 5-program golf swing analysis deal to all of our listeners and followers. If you sign up for his little deal, and if you're interested, just DM us on Twitter or Instagram or something like that. We've posted about it on Twitter and Instagram lately. But you get 10% off. It's like 5 programs for $65 or no, $60 because you get the 10% off. Pretty sweet little deal Travis has going on. Operation Baby Draw is a big deal. So if you're one that slices the ball a lot, cuts the ball a lot, that's a good one. He's got a strokes game lesson in there. And if you're a Nut Hut member, he will give you a free video analysis, one-on-one video analysis. Send him your swing. He'll break it down, shoot you some stuff back to work with if you're a Nut Hut member. So when you sign up, you just need to let him know that you are a Nut Hut member. Our boy Travis Fulton hooking it up. Pats, what a weird – I mean, this is kind of strange, man. I mean, we're coming to a familiar course this week, but we're about to see the course in back-to-back weeks. But the course is probably going to look a little different, and, the format's slightly different. So with that being said, why don't you talk to us about the Workday Charity Open, the inaugural Workday Charity Open 2020.
Actually, it's the inaugural and the only Workday Charity Open because this is basically it's kind of like a deal the Tour did with the John Deere Classic to replace it for like 1 year. I don't know why I guess because the John Deere Classic is where it is and that's what they're going to call it. So this is like a replacement event for the John Deere, but next year it will go back to being the John Deere Classic. So Workday Charity Open, one and only this year. But we are at Muirfield Village Golf Club. Will be here for 2 weeks in a row. As you mentioned, it is a par 72. It is playing 7,456 yards. You'll notice that there's been some change in the yardage, and especially this week, holes 8, 11, and 15. They've added some additional length to those holes. They've added some tees because they're going to get a lot of play on this course over the next 2 weeks. So they've had to make a lot of changes to make sure that they can accommodate for that. We do have 156 players this week. T65 and ties will make the cut. Now, next week we'll be down to 120 because the Memorial is an invitational, so it'll be less players. This is a Jack Nicklaus design, just a classic course. Bent grass greens. They do have some POA in it, but basically they're bent, and they typically run very, very pure. They're extremely undulating greens, similar to what you might see at Augusta. Nicklaus obviously loves Augusta, so they are kind of similar in that way as far as undulation. Traditional par 72, we got 4 par 5s this week. They play 527, 563, 583, and 560. So some of your longer hitters should be able to have at least a shot at hitting at most of these par 5s. And 2, you got 4 par 3s out here. Tree-lined fairways. 11 of the holes out here have water in play, so that's something to look at. I think you want to look at guys that are, avoiding those big numbers this week with the water in play and that kind of stuff. The fairways are bent grass with POA as well. Kentucky bluegrass rough. This is another course that we've seen. Literally, it's kind of been the theme since we started. Just a second shot course, not terribly difficult to hit it into the fairways. As you mentioned earlier, the biggest thing is what they're going to do with this course this week versus next week. This week, it's reported that they're going to have the rough down a little bit, so the rough's not going to be as penal this week, and they're going to slow down the greens this week. They're going to be around like 11 on the stip meter, as opposed to where they usually are, which is extremely quick, around like 13, which I think they're going to ramp it up for next week. And so they're going to use a variety of tee boxes as well, especially on the par 3s. So that'll change it up a little bit. As far as stats for me, my most important ones are strokes gained approach. I think scrambling's going to be important. It always is here. greens in regulation. I'm bringing in proximity. I'm going to throw in a little proximity this week.
Yeah,
I think that
you
is
held off 5. It took
yeah.
you. Let's see. It took you week 5 to bring in proximity from the. Okay, yikes.
Just noticing it's been important this week, and for the Memorial. I mean, it might be a little bit different, but and I said bogey avoidance, and then also going to look at kind of a longer form putting on bent grass greens as well. We don't have any past champions for this event, but if you want to know who the Memorial past champions are. You got Patrick Cantlay in 2019, Bryson in 2018, old Duff Daddy Jason Duffner in 2017, Dirk McGirt, who is now back, by the way. I don't know if he's playing. Is he playing this week? He may have gotten the invite. He may get in next week since he's a Memorial champion.
Yeah, he's not here this week, I don't think.
He is back off of injury. I think he played the Web or the Corn Ferry. Damn, I cannot call the Corn Ferry.
The Web.com to Corn Ferry transition.
Lingmerth in 2015 and then Hideki in 2014.
Lingmerth.
So, God. There you go. That is a weird list of winners right there.
I can't stand Lingmerth, man. That guy, I could never nail him. I'm glad he's gone. I could never get him right. Yeah, I don't have much to add, man. I mean, I think I was looking over some stats. I looked at some stuff on Data Golf as well that just talked about the most important indicators to kind of point to good play here. And distance definitely took a little hit. Distance took a hit as compared to tour average. Strokes gained approach was obviously pretty big. And one thing that I saw get a pretty nice uptick was scrambling and strokes gained around the green. I think that I weighted that heavier this week than I do most weeks. So obviously I'm looking at strokes gained approach, greens in regulation, strokes gained off the tee I'm looking at. But I mean, the fairways here, as you mentioned, pretty generous. So I feel like a lot of people are going to have not a hard time hitting the fairways here.
I do think you can, this is one of those courses that typically plays pretty tough. But like I said, with the rough being down this week versus next week and the putting, the greens being a little bit slower, I think you can look at scoring a little more than you might typically for the Memorial. Like, I think there's going to be, I mean, we'll see how this comes. We're going to get to see it, but I think there's going to be a lot more scoring this week as opposed to next week. And I think it's going to be a different course in that way, because if you get higher rough next week, you get faster greens. Yeah. You're going to see, it's going to play more difficult next week for sure.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. All signs point to this being a little softer this week. There's a little bit of rain in the forecast coming up too. So, yeah, I mean, I think this is all about, as you mentioned, iron play from the fairway, but, you read a lot of quotes from players and you see a lot of things about being creative around the greens here with all the undulation and being able to get up and down. So I definitely weighted that pretty good. Other than that, man, that's it, dude. I'm ready to go. We know what Muirfield is. We kind of know what Muirfield is already. Let's get to it. 9K and above range on DraftKings. You're going to give you 3 GPPs, a cash play, and a fade. I'll start. I think I'm pretty locked in on this one. I had to narrow it down from a handful of names, but I feel pretty good about sticking to this throughout the week and not coming off of these names. I feel pretty good about it. I'm going to go with Patrick Cantlay, who I think is probably going to be a little chalky here as a past champ. $10,600. It's interesting that Justin Thomas, your highest priced guy, only 11-1. That's pretty low for a top notch guy. We've definitely seen 11-5, 11-9 earlier. I think before, at the restart, we've seen 12K before. So you get a little bit of a softer price up top. But I love the value for Patrick Cantlay and what he presents at 10-6. He checks obviously all the boxes. We've only seen him in one event since the restart where he finished T11 at the Travelers, but he is on record talking about how much he absolutely loves this golf course. And he said that before he won. I mean, everybody loves the golf course after they win on it, but he said that before he won and after he won. And I think Cantlay is just too good to pass up. The ball striking, the scrambling is good. I feel like Cantlay is as safe a bet as any. He loves putting on bent greens. So I love the upside there and the floor. I feel pretty good about Cantlay. Then I'm going to go back to the well, man. I guess I hammered him at the Travelers when he finished 20th, but Xander Schauffele is hitting the ball very, very well right now. So I love where he's at since the restart. If he can just avoid the big mistakes with the flat stick, avoid the big mistakes with the putter, I think we'll be okay. He's struggled with 3 putts since the restart. He struggled with those. But, I mean, the tee to green game has been extremely solid for X-Man. So I'm digging him at 10-2. And then finally, amidst all these big bad pros, I am going to go with Victor Hovland, man. I'm going to keep riding the Victor Hovland train. I love the ball striking. He's been absolutely on fire. He's played every event since the restart, but he's a young, just young sucker. Like, dang, the boy's just got the energy of a rabbit. You know what I mean? But he's playing incredibly. And when you look at the last few events since the restart, what's the area where he's seen the most improvement? It's strokes gained around the green. His chipping is better. He told us that he was going to be working on that during the quarantine. He came out at Colonial and said he'd worked on it in the quarantine because beforehand we all knew he was famous for saying how bad he sucked at chipping. And you look at his strokes gained numbers, and he's actually in the positive in strokes gained around the green, which you don't normally find out of him. And I think that's cool. I think that's really cool here, man. I give it to me because the boy don't miss a lot of greens, number one. But when he misses them, if he's chipping it a little better, I think he's just I think he's coming, man, and he seems just primed and ready to go. And I don't mind taking him among guys like Justin Rose and Hideki, and I don't mind taking him. So I'm going to keep riding it. That may be a little chalky up top, but I'm not. I don't know. It doesn't bother me. I mean, Xander was 13% owned at the Travelers, which isn't super chalk. So yeah. I mean, Hovland's been pretty chalky every week, so he's probably going to stay chalky, but I don't care. I'll eat it. And I'm going to go Cantlay and cash. I think you can actually start your cash lineups there in that $10,000 range where Cantlay is. Normally I don't do that, but I just think he's such a lock. So I'm going Cantlay and cash. And my fade is going to be Brooks. And now I know he had a good finish. He had a good finish at Heritage at Harbor Town. But I still want to see the consistency. Even with that finish at Harbor Town, his iron play was basically he gained 0 strokes. He was dead even with his irons. Not great. Before that, when we came back from the restart at the Charles Schwab, he lost 5 shots on approach at the Charles Schwab. He gained them all back putting, which is great. I mean, he's a good putter. He's a great putter. But I would love to see the iron play a little tighter and a little more consistent for Brooks. I think he's motivated. We heard his press conference at the end of Heritage. He wants to win. I get it. But then you see him on Instagram this week showing half-naked pictures of his girl Jenna and his hands all over that ass. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Maybe he ain't that focused because the irons need to get dialed in a little tighter for me if I'm going to pay the 10-4 price tag when he's right there with Cantlay and Schauffele. So I will be fading Brooks. You know, I do like to see him finish 7th. I do like a hungry Brooks, but I need those irons tighter. They've not been good. So that's it.
All right. Well, there's a tad bit of disagreement here, and I will start though with my GPP plays, and I'm going to start with where the disagreement is. And I am on Brooks this week at 10-4. I like him a lot. Now, we've seen his ownership basically around like 10% owned since the restart in every single event, which I like. You get a guy like Brooks Koepka with 10% or less. If we see that again this week, that's pretty good leverage for a guy like him. The stats, you're right.
Do you think we're going to see that, though, with everybody so excited about the 7th place finish and the press conference, towards the end of that, where he's talking about how motivated he is. He told his whole team he's ready for everybody to dig in and get ready. And, he's not going to be lower than 10%.
I don't know. He was 11 at the Schwab, and he was 10.5 or 10.4 at the Heritage in GPPs. I would still expect him to be there may be a little bump, but I wouldn't expect him to be over 15% owned.
Yeah,
I don't think
that's probably fair.
But and here's the thing: you're right. You look at his strokes gained approach; he's 112th. It's kind of weird that he's 26 in greens and regulation when he's so bad on approach, but whatever. But he checks the box in strokes gained around the greens, and he's 2nd in par 5 scoring, which I think you do have to score on these par 5s this week. And this is the week where you could do it, where they're going to be a little bit easier. He also checks the box. He's 11th and bent grass putting, strokes gained putting, if you look over the last 100 rounds. So, just going in with a little bit of momentum. He's had a couple weeks off. I like Brooks at 10-4. So a little disagreement there. I will play him. I'm with you with Xander. He was my other GPP play, so I'll skip over him. My last one is down at the bottom, and it's Ricky Fowler at 9,000. I'm just
Ricky.
We're still getting low ownership from him. We finally saw him play decent last week with a T12 finish. I know we've talked about his, the fact that he's got a new coach and he's struggled a little bit, but I kind of like what I saw last week from him. And, as far as the stats are concerned, just off his last 12 rounds, he's 36th in approach. He's 44th around the green, 7th in greens from regulation, 10th in proximity, 4th in bogey avoidance, and 1st in par 5 scoring. So, things are improving for Ricky. You have to admit that. And you're getting a guy, like him. Let's see. Let me look at his ownership. 9.8 at the last week, 9 at the Heritage, and then 11 at the Charles Schwab. So I like that for a guy that's, got some serious upside. So I like him here. By the way, in the last 3 years or 5 years at Muirfield, he's got a 2nd, an 8th, and a 14th place finish. So he's done well on this course. So it's not like, he can't play this course well. So, I like some Fowler this week. Now, that may be a pretty contrarian play to hate on, but I think this could be a good week for him.
You're getting suckered into his first good week back, but it is his irons haven't been terrible. He's struggled off the tee a bit. The putter has been okay. It hasn't been Ricky Fowler level putting. They just haven't quite dropped.
Maybe not. And I will add, I didn't mention this. He is 3rd in the field in putting on bent grass greens.
Yeah. If
you go over a longer period. So he's comfortable on these type greens. So, that's another reason to look at Fowler this week. So we'll see. I actually like Hovland too, but I like him in cash. I'll put him in the cash slot here at 9,500 for all the reasons that you said. And my fade is going to be Jon Rahm at 10-9. And now, this one's probably pretty bold, but Rahm he's 70th in the field in strokes gained approach, 83rd in proximity. He's 101st in opportunities gained. We haven't really seen much from him since the restart. It hadn't been, for a guy that's the 2nd highest priced guy this week. And most week he's been in the top 4. He misses the cut at the Schwab, T33 at the Heritage, and T37 at the Travelers. So that's not getting the job done for a guy that's priced where he is. And so I just don't know if, as hot as he was at the beginning of the year, and we haven't seen, based off his play, we haven't seen like a huge price decrease off of Jon Rahm. So I just don't feel like that's a good value to play him at. Now, maybe during the week, I'll look on Wednesday and I see him at 7 or 8% owned. I might really want to play him then. But you look at his ownership too, the last, since the restart, he was over 16 at the Schwab. He was 11 at the Heritage, which is not bad. And then over 16 at the Travelers. So, his ownership's still been high, and we haven't seen the greatest of play out of him. So Rahm will be my fade there at 10-9.
See, I kind of like Rahm. He didn't make my final 3, but he's basically number 4 for me. I think what we've seen in Rahm is the Charles Schwab was his first event back. He missed the cut because he lost 4 shots putting. So the putter was ice cold. He brought the putter back to kind of his well, actually, he still hasn't brought the putter back to kind of where he normally sits in terms of strokes gained putting. He had a fluky, bad iron performance at the Travelers, and he still finished 37th. He lost over 4 shots at the Travelers, still finished 37th. He hasn't lost 4 shots. He hasn't lost that many shots since the WGC Mexico in 2019. And before that, it was WGC Bridgestone in 2017. So that was a major outlier performance with his irons. And I actually think that of all the courses he's played, Colonial, Harbor Town, and even Travelers, I actually think this sets up to be a better track for him because the fairways are wide. I said the distance doesn't matter as much, and it doesn't because it definitely pulls into play some of the shorter hitters that hit it tight. But I do think he can. I think he can use his length to his advantage here because I mean, typically he's a pretty accurate player off the tee for his length, and he's a top 10 iron player. I mean, like that's why he's one of the best in the world. So I actually think Rahm has some upside. I like the bounce back. You know, it's been a disappointing restart with a miscut and basically 2 top 40s, but I like a little bit of bounce back here for him. I have to disagree with you a little bit on that one.
I think if we see some ownership that's, you know, at lower levels, I could get swayed onto playing him, but right now he's a fade for me. Also, just a quick note, he did miss the cut the one time he's played here, which was 2017. He missed the cut. So just a little note there. I don't think that makes a lot of difference whatsoever, but the week he played here last, he did not play well at all across the board.
I will say when I'm looking at this field, just overall, like down in that 6K range, there's not as many names this week that I feel great about.
I agree with you there.
Especially when you start thinking about the last couple of weeks with 150 something players, top 65 and ties, you know, making the cut, and 6 of 6 in terms of DFS being a very rare thing to get. I'm a lot less inclined to play some of these 6K guys this week. There's just not as many names that pop out to me. Now, there's 4 that I wrote down, so I'm still going to give them to you. But, you know, last week, even the week before that, I liked a lot more. So, you know, I think you need to have some of these studs up top. I think that's going to be required just because of the upside. And I'm not even really a huge fan of the 8K range. So it's all about, for me, it's going to be like hanging out in the 9K and above, trying to get as many of those players as I can in a lineup, and then not dipping below 7 to kind of fill out my roster. And then in terms of betting, you mean, I'm just going to kind of pound the middle. And there's a few value plays I see on the betting odds as well. So let's get into the 8K range. Pat, you want to start this one off? Tell me your 2 tournament plays, your cash play, and your fade, and any bets that you may have. If you have any bets starting out here.
So I will start with my 2 GPP plays, and it's gonna go. I'm gonna start with Cooch. I like Cooch this week. He's obviously won this tournament before. We haven't seen him since the Heritage, where he didn't have, you know, the greatest of starts there. What did he finish there? T41 when he was relatively high end. So I think that means we're just going to get a little bit of a, his ownership might be just a little bit less, but he checks a box in putting on bent grass. He's 18th in the field there. I think that's a huge thing for him. And then you look at, his stats, they're kind of across the board. Hang on. Sorry, I lost. Hey. Yeah.
Cooch, Matt Kuchar. Have you heard of him? Matt
Kuchar? Yeah. So he hasn't, look, I don't think the stats are they're not great for him, but I just feel like this is a course that is a great fit for him. And he also, he doesn't have a whole lot of high scores here. He's second in bogey avoidance. Kuchar, for me, it's an ownership deal, though. That's really the play for me. I feel like he's going to have a lot less ownership than he normally has. He's pretty safe at 8,500. And I don't know if I'd play him in cash, but I do like him in GPP, so I like him. I like Jordan Spieth at 8,600. I'm going to play him.
You're gonna go to Spieth. Tell me why. Tell me why. Tell me why, homie.
I mean, this is a great course for him. He loves this course, and I don't care if the greens are. I don't care if the greens are or slow, fast, whatever. This is a course that he loves. He's number 1 in the field in strokes gained putting on bent grass greens. So I feel like he can have a good putting week. We do know that he has been all over the place with his driver. I don't necessarily think that matters quite as much this week. I think he can still miss the fairway as long as he doesn't miss it by like 40 yards like he does sometimes. But we've seen his approach game improve.
Said than done.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen his approach game at least improve a little bit. He's not going to be like in the top 20 in the field, but he's definitely in the top first half of the field. And I just think, we continually get low ownership from Spieth. Nobody believes in him. The DFS world doesn't believe in him. So if you listen to other podcasts, nobody wants to play him. And it's evidence in his ownership, which we've seen since the start of the new season. I mean, where let's look. He is 6% in the Travelers, 6% at the Heritage.
Yeah.
He was 16% at the Schwab, but that was because his course history there is just absolutely ridiculous, and everybody forgot about Spieth because that was the first event back, and they forgot that, okay, wait a second, we don't really know if he's back or not or whatever. And
what's weird is he was 17% owned at the Schwab, finished 10th, and then the next week at the Heritage he was 7%.
He was 7.
Now, and he drunk slammed, he didn't drunk slam. He finished like DFL, which I guess people saw coming. But I mean, the irons weren't as good at the Schwab, and he gained all of his strokes at the Schwab putting. But that's what he does. I think Spieth is if I were going to play Jordan, which as of now I am not, but let me have a conversation here with you about him. If I were going to play Jordan in DraftKings, I would play him in mass entry large GPPs. I would not play him in cash. I would not play him in a high dollar single entry contest. You could play him in like the $5 single or the $20 three max or the $12 albatross or the $33 dog leg, maybe the $100 single entry. But like, I'm not interested in putting a ton of money on him, but he is one of those players who his ceiling, I think, is still pretty good. For Jordan Spieth on Muirfield, I think his ceiling, he's got winning upside. He could come out and do it. Like this week, it could happen. I don't think it's likely, but it could. So he gives you that upside.
And let's just remember, this is golf. We've seen guys. I mean, every week there is somebody.
Is this golf?
This is golf.
Oh,
golf is a variable sport. There's somebody every single week that you just sort of like, God, that guy had never checked didn't have a single stat. He didn't do anything that I thought he could do well, and then all of a sudden he does well, and you just never know. But they might be comfortable in the course. But I like Spieth, and I think we're going to get him again at lower ownership. So I will play him. Adam Hadwin will be my cash play at 8,200. I just think, the guy's been in incredible form. He's definitely checking boxes. You look at he's checking in strokes gained approach. He's number 1 in the field in greens and regulation, 13th in proximity. He putts extremely well on bent grass greens. You're getting him at a good price at 8,200, coming off of, good recent results with a, T4 last week. So I think Adam Hadwin is a solid cash play here at 8,200. My fade is going to be the guy that finished second last week, and a guy that I actually ended up with in a few lineups, and that is Matthew Wolff at 8,100. I feel like there's going to be a little bit of an ownership boost for him, and I don't.
Yeah, there is going to be.
And I just don't know if I want to take part in that. If you notice, he is very hit or miss. Like he was second last week, but he missed the cut the 2 weeks prior to that. And then nothing better than a 52nd place finish when the season was going strong, so the 52nd was at the Arnold Palmer. I mean, he's just a very streaky golfer who I have a problem with having a lot of confidence in. And you're getting him at 8,100, coming off a second place finish. I just think he makes for like just kind of a sucker play this week, especially if he gets, pretty high ownership. I don't know where it is right now, but so he will be my fade.
I like the fade. I mean, and here's the thing with Matt Wolff. We've talked about this on the show a bunch. Like, I am not sure that the jury is out on how repeatable that swing is week in, week out, year in, year out, and especially down the stretch on Sunday with a lead. As we saw, it wasn't great. But when he's on, he can go stupid low. Like
he really can.
Stupid low. And so if we continue to see that in his young career, that makes him a guy that, like I kind of just said about Spieth, has a really high ceiling, that maybe when you start to, when you see him dip in the low 7K in DFS or the high 6K, which is where he was last week. He was in the high 6s. Now
which is one of the reasons that put me on him last week. I mean, I saw him down there and I was like, oh wait, Matthew Wolff right there.
So that's one of those guys. Yeah, that's one of those guys where at that price you have so much upside, you take that chance. But when you're spending that kind of dollar on 8K, or if you're, if now his betting odds have slipped into the 50 to 1 instead of the 76, 75 to 1, I just don't know if he makes sense at that point. So I agree with you. He was not one I wrote down, but I do agree with you there. All right, my two tournament plays. You already mentioned one is Matt Kuchar. Completely agree with Kuch here. I'm gonna hope that the rust has been knocked off, and he's gonna come here to Muirfield ready to roll. And I always love the value that you get with Kuch, the low floor, and again, less than 4% back-to-back weeks have had 6 of 6 in the Millie Maker. You know, Kuchar, I feel like gives you a great chance. He's Data Golf has him at over 60% chance of making the cut, well over 60% chance of making the cut. I like Kuchar just from that safety standpoint with the price tag I'm putting on him. The next player that I like in tournaments, I think this is now the second time I've gone to him, like ever, and that's Matt Fitzpatrick right there at 8K. Love the value that I get with Fitzy. I think this is a golf course that suits him. You know, he's an accurate player, very, very accurate off the tee, very accurate with his irons. It's all great putter, tremendous putter. So I like it. I mean, he's come out since the restart, finished 32nd at the Schwab, 14th at the Heritage, missed a cut at the Travelers, but I really like where this course sets up for Fitzpatrick. I think this could be a great week for him, and I love the value.
Does it make you feel any better about Fitzpatrick that he's going to have bones on the bag this week?
I mean, I thought about that. I mean, I think he's going to have him on for next week as well.
Yeah,
which I do think is cool. I mean, I don't know what that's – at the end of the day, I don't know what that's worth. Like, I mean, Bones is – I don't know. Maybe it's worth a half a stroke in the tournament. I don't know that it's worth a full shot over 4 rounds, but I mean, every little bit helps for sure when you're trying to get 6 of 6 through. I also like him at 55-1. I found him on 55-1 at 55-1 on DK Sportsbook. I like that. And then my cash play is your cash play. It's Adam Hadwin at 50-1, also on DK Sportsbook. You know, in terms of a tournament play, he's going to be chalky. He's been chalky the last couple of weeks. He's played really well. He's given you – I'm not saying you can't play him in tournaments. You definitely can. Just know that you're playing a chalky player, and you're going to need to make sure you have leverage somewhere else. But in cash, he's a lock. I love Hadwin here. My fade for this range is going to be Sungjae, man. And Sungjae's rated out pretty high. But what I don't like about Sungjae since the restart is Sungjae's irons need to be rebooted. Like somebody needs to check the wiring on Sungjae's motherboard and figure out why he can't hit an iron all of a sudden. Since, I mean, in his last 3 events, last week, the Travelers and the Heritage, by the way, in typical Sungjae fashion, he's played every event since the restart. This will be event number 5, okay? And he's only missed 1 cut. So let's see, he's going on 4, 8, 12, 14. So he's played 14 rounds since the restart, tournament rounds since the restart. But in the last 3 events, he's not gained a single shot in approach. He lost 2 shots last week, 2 shots at the Travelers, more than a half a shot at the Heritage. I don't like that. And that's not where Sungjae has been historically. We're not seeing that. And this is we talked about, this is a very much, we say this a lot, but this is for sure a second shot golf course. And I want to see Sungjae a little more dialed in, hitting it into on the proper tiers of these greens before I play him at 8,900. So Sungjae for me is a fade, a kind of, I guess you would say more of a bold fade in this range.
Yeah, I actually thought about him as a fade, and I wasn't bold enough to say that he was a fade, but I agree. Like I think you're onto something there, so I'm with you.
Yeah, I mean, you know, yeah. Props to Fantasy National too for some of the new stuff they've built in over here with this new the new sneak peek feature where you can build these models out, because being able to look at some of this stuff so much quicker, you know, allows me to dive deeper on a Monday, so I can really like get in there. I have time to like really get in there and dig. So shout out to Fantasy National. If you guys haven't joined Fantasy National so far, I don't know what you're doing. If you're betting on golf or playing DFS golf, you need to be a member at fantasynational.com/TJ. Or whenever you sign up, it'll ask you, how'd you hear about us? Type in Tour Junkies. You get 20% off any membership that you pick there. You can get a weekly membership, a monthly, or an annual. And if you get the weekly and you just want to try it and you love it, and then you sign up for the annual, you still get the 20% off. It's a great deal. It's where we get, all of our stats. Like, it's a fantastic spot. You got lineup optimizers, lineup builders, all kind of tools, whether you're betting or playing DFS. So fantasynational.com/TJ. We've been using old Fantasy National for what, like 3 years now?
3 years at least, yeah. God, it's made my life way easier.
It's definitely a lot better than when we first started. Love it. All right, let's get to the 7K. Now, this is a tough range for me.
I like this range a lot, and this is where I think you really need, if you're going to be winning, if your screens are going to be green on Sunday, this is where it's at. So,
man, there's so many decisions, dude. I like so many players here. Why don't you start? Because I'm still trying I'm still trying to figure it out.
Well, I'll start with Cash, and I kind of debated back and forth between this guy and Cash, but I still think you can play him in Cash, and that's Joel Damon at 7,700. I think he's a good cash play. I think this is a great course fit for him. I mean, you look at all the stats across the board. I mean, he's checking the box in approach, greens and regulation, proximity, bogey avoidance. He's 10th in the field in opportunities gained. If he has a good putting week, he should easily make the cut and then some, have a chance to win. I think if you're looking at Joel Damon, like this week versus next week with the course playing a little bit more difficult, I like him way more this week than I do next week. So I'm a big fan of Damon this week at 7,700.
I kind of like him on both.
I mean, it could be both, but I'm just saying I think he's going to have a better chance to score this week. So we'll see. But I do like him at cash.
Oh, dear. Oh, dear. Oh, dear. Man down. You want me to go?
Did you think your co-host was about to have a heart attack for the first time ever on the show?
What if you did? What if you did, though? Wouldn't that be crazy? I mean, I hope you don't die.
I mean, you had a tiny seizure one time.
I did. Oh no, I had I had like a TIA. I had like a mini stroke, is what that was. Not a seizure. I didn't have a seizure.
Mini stroke.
Had a TIA.
Yeah.
But it would be crazy. Like, imagine how much pub we would get if you like did have a heart attack live. And again, you recovered fully. In fact,
okay, so I was alive. I was about to say
you had such a timely heart attack that it actually exposed to the doctors that you were almost completely blocked. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then they were able to go in there and fix it and like basically prolong your life for another like 20. But you still like did have a heart attack live on the show. Like that could be a viral video. We could blow up. Would you be willing?
Yeah, I'd be okay with that. Yeah.
Okay.
As long as I wasn't dead at the end of it. Like
have some fries, man.
There's a success story here at the end.
Yeah. I'm not. I don't want you to. I don't want it to be the widowmaker. You know what I mean? I just want you to just a little bit.
Okay. Anyway, back to the picks here. I'm liking Scott Stallings at 7,300. We've seen him play extremely solid just, since we've come back here, and he still stays relatively cheap. I mean, he's at 7,300. He was T48 at the Heritage, T6 at the Travelers, T39 last week, where he really had a chance. He came in strong to the weekend and just kind of faltered a little bit on the weekend.
Yeah, we had him at 100-1 too on freaking. Oh,
yeah, and just
painful.
Didn't. I mean, you had to score though on the weekend. You had to at least be like, 12 under on the weekend to be in the top 15 or whatever, and he just wasn't. Yeah. So, but I still like him at 7,300. There's a lot of guys really that you could talk about here that I like.
Yeah.
And let's see, another guy that I like, bottom end of it, Zach Johnson at 7,100. I think he's a good play this week. I haven't even talked about him.
I didn't see that Zach Johnson coming.
Look, you're going to get Zach Johnson.
I didn't see you pulling your Johnson out.
You're going to get him at like 1 or 2% owned. He's played this course 9 times. He's played this tournament. He has never missed the cut here. He is number 1 in bogey avoidance. Okay, so you talk about the water off the tee and onto some of these greens. I think that's important there. I think the ownership's going to be low. He's top 10 in the field in putting on bent grass greens. And you know what? I mean, his form hasn't been terrible. He did miss the cut at the Heritage, but he had a T11 at the Travelers, T43 at the Schwab. He's got some upside, I think, at 7,100. So I think Zach Johnson is just kind of an out there gut play that you can go with this week. Because there's a lot of guys that we could talk about who we've been talking about most weeks, like Patrick Rogers and Harold Varner and those type guys that have been pretty popular over the last few weeks. But you're going to get Zach Johnson very low owned. Let me pull him up just to give you a little example.
But do you like Zach?
So he was at 0.3 at the Travelers.
Yeah. He's not going to be high.
It's 0.8. And we're talking GPP plays right here. So I'm not just going to give you the Harold Varner, who I like. I like him. I like Patrick Rogers this week. My cash play is Kevin Streelman. I think Kevin Streelman's a great play this week. He'll probably have a little bit higher ownership, but I think he's a good play as well.
Kevin's okay? I got a number of things going on here. I don't know that I like Zach as much this week at Muirfield as I do Zach next week at Muirfield. I like Zach better on the firmer, faster, higher rough in the fairway, so more penal if you miss it, faster greens. I feel like I like Zach better there. But I mean, I don't hate it. I just think if I was gonna pick a week to play him, I would play him next week. That's just me. You mentioned Streelman. What?
Let me finish my
thought. It's called a rebuttal,
Streelman.
Patrick.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. With Streelman, let me go back to him.
He had a great week at the Travelers, finished runner-up. But I mean, before that, he sucked on two courses that were just as good a fit for him as this place is. I mean, actually, I would argue Heritage and Colonial, Harbortown and Colonial, probably better fits for him than TPC River Highlands.
Well, but he's played well here. You look at four of the last 5 times he's played here. He's finished in the top 20 with a 5th place last year. So, I mean, he's obviously shown that he can play well on this course. It's not, like you mentioned it earlier, the Bombers don't necessarily, thrive here. We saw the past champs. They're all over the place. I think Streelman makes for a good play. I do think his ownership will be interesting to look at. But, I mean, look at his stats. He's 35th in strokes gained approach. He's 10th in greens and regulation, 27th in par 5 scoring, 54th in opportunities gained. So I think I like Streelman this week. I think it's a good play. I have a bonus play, by the way, that I love.
I got a couple of them.
Cam Champ at 7,700. 2 straight top 15 finishes. Checks a box of greens and regulation and approach. I think you're going to get him at low ownership again this week. He could end up being like the Matthew Wolff of last week. We could see, but I don't know. So
Dang,
I like
you said Matt Wolff. Way to go, dude. I don't know how you said it last time. You actually said the L in there that time.
Okay. Anyway, good. You go
man.
with the 7K range.
Congratulations. Yeah, this is tough. First of all, I'll go ahead and say I 100% agreement on Joel. He's my cash play. He's definitely a tournament play. If you want to do that, he's going to be chalk, but play him. If you're a Nut Hut member, we tend to get at least some sort of a readout on whether our Joel Love should be confirmed or denied by Wednesday night. So pay attention to that. But I'm going to go with a guy up top at 7,900, Byung-Hun An, who has not played great since we restarted, but I like the upside. I like the dart throwing ability of Byung-Hun An. He's one of the best.
That was my fade, by the way, which I never mentioned.
Oh, was it? Okay. So. He's one of the best. He's 5th in this field over the long term in strokes gained around the green. He's always been a fantastic chipper, and scrambler around the greens. He's not that accurate, but I think the wider fairways help him out a little bit here. So I think
shitty putter.
Yeah, but he's always been that way.
He's 143rd in the field in strokes gained putting on bent.
Yeah, well, actually, believe it or not, his bent's his best surface. So
how is bent his best surface? Like
it is. It's his best surface if you look over the long term. But I mean,
then talk about you got to be impressed with his badness on greens in any surface.
His green. He's a horrible putter. Okay, but horrible putters.
But he's a good player. I'm not saying
they have fluky weeks. I mean, he finished 4th at the Honda, 9th at the Waste Management. I He's got a ton of upside. We know Byung-Hun An has been very close for a couple years now. And I think in this week where I think it's going to be a little more of a birdie fest, I kind of want a little piece of that upside action. That's all I'm saying. I also am going to drop down and have a little bit of Billy Ho. I like the accuracy from Billy. I like the course history here. I like the fact that I feel like I'm going to get a cut maker out of Billy. I think he'll be kind of mid-range popular. He hasn't come out and really killed it since the restart, so that might suppress ownership a little bit. But overall, long-term, Billy is a very accurate player, solid iron player, and I like the value at 7,500. I'm going to go back to the well. We were both on him. We both mentioned him last week. He finished T8 at the Rocket Mortgage, and he was only like 8% owned, and that was Maverick McNeely. I'm going to go back to Maverick. I think he's an interesting play here. Another guy who just puts the lights out and a pretty solid ball striker and just pretty solid tee to green all the way around. So I'm going to go with on Billy Ho and McNeely. But man, there are a lot of other names in here. So Byung-Hun An is 70-1, Horschel's 70-1, McNeely's 130-1, which I think is stupid long on DraftKings Sportsbook for a guy who's had some top tens on tour. He's playing good right now. He's trending nicely. I think that 130 number is a little too high. By the way, Joel Damon 100-1. I think that's very high as well. I would rather have the Damon, and if I had to pick two out of there, I'd take Damon at 100-1 and McNeely at 130-1 for sure. So I do like that. My fade, I talked about Streelman a little bit. I actually think, I'm going to argue with you a little bit here. I think Cam Champ's a fade. Maybe we do a Cam Champ, Byung-Hun An bet. You know who loses more strokes putting on bent than Byung-Hun An? His name is Cameron Champ. Cam Champ sucks putting on bent green. He absolutely sucks putting on bent greens. Now,
we don't have as much.
He's done a little better.
Yeah, but we don't have as much of a history with Champ than we do with On.
We've got 30-something events, which is not a small sample size, but out of that sample size, it's not been great. He's a horrible chipper, horrible scrambler, short-term, long-term, horrible scrambler. So if he's missing greens, he is not likely to get up and down and make it happen. He better be hitting greens. And as I mentioned, length is not as important. Last week at the Rocket Mortgage, he gained 5.7 strokes off the tee because he just blasted it all over the yard. He's not going to – you don't necessarily do that here at Muirfield. He gained 2.7 the week before. I just don't feel like this is one of those spots to play Cam Champ.
That's the thing with you when you look at Champ. These are all these courses are like, tight tree line. You talk about the Charles Schwab where he finished T14, and then last week at the Rocket Mortgage, which I think is even a little bit more wide open than you see at Colonial, and he's known for being a bomber, but he's still playing extremely well. Coming off of the restart, 2 straight top 15 finishes, in the only 2 starts off of 3 months off. So I don't know what he's working on or what's working, but something is, and he's playing well. And you're right, Bent's his worst surface, Bermuda's his best surface. I guess if you look at it, he's definitely gaining strokes off the tee. He's gained 3 strokes on approach at the Charles Schwab, and his putting has been really good. Actually, because we talk about how bad his putting is, he's gained strokes in the only 2 events he's played. So maybe that's what he did. Maybe that's what he did in the offseason. He just spent, he had his own little putting green because he couldn't go anywhere else. So maybe he just putted his ass off for 3 months. I don't know.
What if we
look at this, by the way,
God. What?
Look at this. I can argue with you just like you can argue with me. Lost strokes at the AT&T, lost strokes at the Genesis, lost strokes at the Arnold Palmer, and then gains 2.8 at the Schwab and gains 1 at the Rocket Mortgage. So
listen,
maybe he spent some time on the putting green.
Maybe. I'm not willing to, after 2 freaking events in the positive, crown Cameron Champ as some putting guru, unless you tell me he went and saw Brad Faxon over the break. If you tell me he saw Brad Faxon, then all bets are off.
But
Speaking
you'll play Ben On, who like is the worst putter in America.
But here's the thing: he's probably a better iron player than Cam Champ. He just doesn't gain the strokes off the tee as Cam Champ. He's a better iron player. He's light years better at scrambling. Literally, Byung-Hun An at the top of the list scrambling, Cam Champ at the bottom of the list scrambling. And over the long term, they're both pretty equally garbage putters. So I think long term makes sense there. Why don't we have a bet? Why don't we have a Cam Champ versus Byung-Hun An bet straight up? And the loser has to do something that our caddy friend Brett Swedberg recommended back in a couple weeks ago. The loser has to drink a healthy shot of ranch water to start the podcast off next week. You got to take a big old gulp of ranch water.
All right, I will take that bet. I think that you will,
because if you didn't, you'd be called a pansy. People would kill you if you didn't.
No, because I think, and also I've won like every single bet this year.
You have. I the odds say I cannot. A win has got to be coming for me. So it's just a straight up matchup. How about this? How about we say if they tie at the tournament level, like if they both finish like T21, okay, then the tiebreaker is whoever scores the most DraftKings points.
Okay, I'm fine with that. I mean,
okay.
It's going to help whoever plays them if they play them. If they have a little bit more DraftKings point and they get 5 or 6, because okay, all right,
okay. Let's get into.
You're going to start the 6K. You're going to start the 6K range because I've started the last 2.
Okay, I will start the 6K range then. So I got 4 names in here that are kind of catching my eye. Let me find the first one here. So the first one's Mr. Jim Furyk, old Jimmy. I don't love it. Okay, this isn't the one I feel the greatest about, but in terms of someone who has a lot of experience here, who from a long-term course fit definitely fits the bill in terms of being extremely accurate, hitting a lot of greens in regulation. Obviously, Jim is there now. Similar to Zach Johnson, he may be one that I prefer to play next week, but he's just one in the 6K range that kind of catches my eye. One that I like, that I think you can get a little more leverage out of and maybe have a little better upside, is Richie Werenski, who's been playing pretty good since the restart, and he's trending nicely. Came off and started the restart by making a cut, but finishing 58th. Okay. Then he went to the Travelers, finished 46th. Then he played last week and finished 21st. He's trending nicely. The ball striking is getting there. And if you look, his best putting surface over his career is bent grass. Okay. And then when you look at fairways gained, he has been extremely accurate the last couple of weeks. Just last week of the Rocket Mortgage, he gained 7.4 fairways on the field, which is pretty freaking good last time I checked. Greens and regulation numbers off the charts. $6,800 for Richie Werenski, who's been putting the lights out as well, and fairly accurate, I think is a neat play. Now, I'm going to skip over Matt Naismith, as I'm sure everyone is shocked to see me do. Not that I don't like Matt Naismith. He is definitely of interest. But I'm going to go with a guy who we've not seen yet. We haven't seen him since the restart. But long-term, if you look at his long-term, what does this player do well? He puts. He only gains strokes putting on one putting surface, and that is bent grass greens. Historically, very accurate driver of the golf ball. Historically, positive in strokes gained around the green and strokes gained putting. That is Mr. Nick Taylor. Sorry. That is Nick Taylor. That's who I was going to guess, by the way. Just before the restart, won the Pebble Beach Pro-Am. So, I think one of the things that you got to know is when you get guys down here, knowing that there's a lot of upside, that top 10 upside is key. You had Matt Wolff last week at $6,800 who finished runner-up. So you got to find guys with some upside, and I think Nick Taylor gives you a little bit of that. He's not sexy. He doesn't make me feel warm and fuzzy in my in my regions, but I like him. I like the play. And then finally, I'm going to go with Henrik Norlander, a guy who we put a bunch of people on last week and the week before that and the week before that. Finished 12th at the Rocket Mortgage. Norlander is a ball striking fool, y'all. He just can't putt. So $6,500 is worth taking the gamble. I mean, he's been playing so good, in the last couple of weeks. Last week, he gained 8.3 shots approach. Now, is that going to continue? Probably not. But I think you can get, if you want a $6,500 player, if you want a $67 and below $100 player who can make a cut, I think Henrik Norlander can check that box for you. So I think, let me see if I got any bets down here. I do have a bet of a guy I didn't name, but I think he's actually in the 7K. I think I skipped over Sepp Straka at 175 to 1. He's another player I like. So there you go.
Yeah,
that's right it for me.
All right. Well, you've. I guess I'm glad we can. The listeners may be glad that we can shorten the show probably a little bit here, because there were several guys that you mentioned that I already had written down. One was Furyk. I'm not as confident like you said, but I think as far as a 6K guy, I think he makes a lot of sense here, and he's got a lot of experience. So I'm with you there. Richie Werenski was my guy that I liked a lot, and so probably maybe I shouldn't be surprised that you mentioned him as well, but I will be playing him. I think he's a good play here. There's not, and Nick Taylor also was another one. I was kind of surprised you mentioned him, because I thought you might stay away from a guy who hasn't started back. Since the restart, but I do like him. Who can I add right now that you did not mention?
There's a few names that are interesting, but I just don't feel great about this range, honestly.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that I don't think I'm going to play a ton of guys. Now I'll say it. Here's a guy that's just not exciting at all, but is just a very solid golfer, and that's Michael Thompson at 6,900. I mean, The guy is just nobody. He gets no love, and he's solid as they come. He's made all 3 cuts since the start, with the T8th being at the Heritage, which is a good course for him. And this is another good course fit for him. He's not the longest off the tee, but he's a good, he's great as far as, his iron play and everything else. So I think that Michael Thompson, he's 37th in the field in strokes gained approach. He's 15th in proximity. Avoids the big numbers. He checks a box in bogey avoidance. So I think that Michael Thompson could be a pretty good play this week at 6,900. Pretty kind of safe play that you could go to. Now, not for cash, but again, a guy that's a cut maker, that's not very exciting, that's going to have low ownership. So I like him as far as tournaments are concerned. So there you go. Those are my GPP plays for the Workday Charity.
Awesome. There we go. Good stuff, Pat. Now we want to end the show. We want to end the show with a segment that we haven't done in a long time. It's time for TJ Hotline Bling, where you, the listeners, the viewers, call into the TJ Hotline. You leave us a voicemail. We discuss. We talk about it. I'm excited about tonight. I'm excited about having the voicemails tonight. Now, if you don't know, you can call and leave a voicemail at any time. Anytime. And just because, now I will say this, there's a few voicemails that did not make the show tonight. You may find yourself on in the coming weeks. I know there's a few in particular that were kind of strategies, thoughts that I think we could definitely hit on later. But if you want to call, it's 706-623-3428 is the number to TJ Hotline Bling. 706-6 Addict is how that goes. That's a real cute thing we did a while back. 706-623-3428 is the number. Now, I have never done the TJ Hotline Bling through the old, the old Zoom live meeting streamed into YouTube. So I don't know if this is going to work or not, which could be it could actually be a disaster. So let's see if it works. But it very well may not. So let's just see. Okay. I'm going to share my screen so everybody can hear. our first caller came in, and we know this guy. He's a good dude. Let's see if you can hear. Pat, tell me if you can hear this, okay? Start shaking your head if you can hear it. No? Okay, hang on. I think it's because I have my Bluetooth in. So let me do that. Nope, not happy about that either. Let's see. Okay, let's try this. Tell me if you can hear it now.
What up, Tour Junkies? It's Marcus Griffin. I wanted to call and share some love for Pat. Man, this guy is so sharp. He managed to tie in both his wife's birthday and their anniversary on the same day. I recently found that out trying to set him up with some golf when I was down in Savannah, and the day that we were looking at happened to be that day. So obviously he did not have a pass for golf. The second thing I wanted to bring up, man, is it legal to gamble in Georgia yet? Come on, guys. We keep on having these awesome bets every week, and I know some of the sites you can get on with Bitcoin or some other stuff like that. I hadn't really got into that yet, but looking forward to gambling when it finally gets legal here in Georgia. Appreciate you guys. Chat soon. Bye. Hi.
So I don't know if whoop.
Okay. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. I don't know if Marcus knows this or not, but we are not congressmen or senators. So in terms of Georgia legalized betting, Marcus, we don't have any influence on that, bud. But definitely encourage all you Georgians out there to make that happen. This is why we got pissed off at Virginia Galloway a couple weeks ago for putting.
Well, the thing is, it basically got tabled now to 2021, so it's not happening this year. If you're looking at Georgia, I appreciate Marcus's comments on me having my wife's birthday and our anniversary on the same date, and saying that was like a good thing, but like I don't see it I think it's a bad thing. Like I don't see it as a good thing. Maybe because you can remember the day, like there's only one day instead of 2 days that you got to remember. So as guys, like we have problems with that. Like we forget shit because I do. I don't know about you, DB, but I do. I forget shit. Yeah. And so there's so that helps me out. But then the problem was, because if you know my wife, she said, okay, this doesn't mean you can get one gift for both. Like you got to get one gift for the anniversary, and you got to get one gift for the birthday. So like that screws me a little bit. And from that standpoint, now what I've learned over the years is that for the anniversary, I can do like flowers or something like that and a card, and I can be okay. But for the birthday, I got to get something else. But yeah, I'm probably in the minority. I don't know many people. I'd love to know if there's anybody else out there that that actually has their wife's birthday and anniversary on the same day. It's funny, by the way, my dad's birthday and their anniversary is on the same day, which is kind of interesting that happened, but sort of anyway.
Well played by you. I mean, I think it's actually a great. I was thinking that Marcus was saying you're a pretty sharp guy because you were able to, make sure that you set the wedding date on a weekend where you could just kind of lump everything all together, and you only have to think about it. Now, I will say you only have to think about it for 1 week a year, 1 weekend, which is nice. That's
yeah. So another look, like the other downside to that is that you lump it all into 1 weekend. So it's got to be special. Like if you screw it up because you only have 1 weekend or 1 day or whatever, you screw that whole shit up, and it's all your whole world's busted up. Whereas like if you could have had, like if you have a birthday in June and then an anniversary in like October, which would not have happened for me because that's football season. But anyway, if you had that whole separation there, like you can make it up if you screw up the birthday, whereas I have to make everything has to be perfect come that day, like everything. So there's some good and bad here. We could argue this for a little bit. But
so anyway. Marcus Griffin is live on YouTube, the guy who left the voicemail, and he just said, Pat, you just have to get one big gift. You know what I mean? It probably does suck for you too, because you know you only get the sexuals. You probably only get the sexuals just once. You know what I mean? And where you'd be trying to take advantage of that twice. You know, well maybe that's your birthday. Her birthday, you're not getting anything. But anyway,
okay.
Good. All right, let's go to the next voicemail. Let's see if I can make this work for the next voicemail. Here we go. Let's see. Okay, this voicemail comes from Ryan. Here we go, Ryan.
Hi, this is Ryan, and I want to know you think that Brooks and Scotty will play well this week, and also how do you like that Bryson lead in DB? Let's go. Tour Junkies are awesome.
Ryan, thank you so much for the voicemail, buddy. Listen, your boy DB. Yes, I'll take the latter question first about the Bryson win. I'm not hating. I'm not hurt by it. Like I said, I've been banging the drum for weeks. It's coming. I knew it was coming. I think he's good for golf right now. I just think he's a total butthole and a horrible level of emotional intelligence and some common sense. But yeah, Ryan, I mean, I don't mind the Bryson win. I think it's very interesting for golf, and it's been exciting to see as we come back. Now, Ryan also asked about Brooks, which we've already talked about, but he also rubbed some salt in the wound of Mr. Pat Perry, who jumped on Scotty Scheffler last week. And Scotty shot a 7 over and then a 7 under to miss the cut by 5.
Yeah, I think Ryan, I will say this: Scotty, who yes, he did burn me. I mentioned I'm a big fan of Koepka this week. Scheffler, we're getting a good price decrease on him, and I would think here's the thing: after Thursday's round, I thought something was wrong, and we've seen that there's possibly some injury concern and something like that. But if he goes and shoots us, he shot 7 under on Friday.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't know. So I think you can get a little bit of good value out of Scotty Scheffler this week at where he's priced. So, Ryan, you know what's going to happen. Come Wednesday night, he's going to end up in some of my lineups. And
dude, you were raging on Scotty Scheffler on our group text with Ben.
I was raging. Yeah, for sure.
Totally raging. Yeah, we did hear, unfortunately, after Wednesday night, we did hear that Scheffler may be dealing with a little bit of an injury. But we heard that on Thursday, and then he comes out Friday and shoots 7 under. And it's like, okay, well, maybe did he get healed? Did he go to some kind of a service? Was there a
hypnotist
in Detroit?
Like somebody hypnotized him and said, "Oh wait, Scotty, remember you're actually a pretty damn good golfer," and now he is. Yeah. Like I don't know, but I think I could be. I love the question because I think Scheffler is going to be kind of one of those polarizing players this week that a lot of people are going to look at come Wednesday and maybe get on, and hopefully he does not burn them again like he's been doing to me the last few weeks. But Ryan, we appreciate you, man. We appreciate you listening to us, and we appreciate the questions as well.
All right, last voicemail of the night. This is my favorite one from our boy Scotty DeFrucio, who I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
I feel like you're doing a good job. You've already talked about him earlier. I think
I'm killing it. Yeah. He won around 24K this week. Won the Pat Mayo Open, and got kind of. I mean, took advantage of some good luck on DraftKings messing up the pay structure. But I also asked him because he messaged us. He was telling us thanks. And by the way, for all you wanting to know, he did put in a sizable order on tourjunkies.com. It's going to put Pat to work. So, Pat, you're going to have to put a little effort into that one. Maybe throw him a few little extra things for that. But
he'll get some extras.
I asked him, I said, hey, what are you gonna do with the money? Like, tell us what you're gonna do with a little bit of the money. And man, I gotta tell you, this right here about brought a tear to my eye. Okay, it about brought a tear to my eyeballs. So let's see if I can get this going again. Hang on.
Hey, DB, Pat, Scotty DeFrucio here, man. What an awesome weekend to win the PME Open was probably the coolest thing, especially considering that whoever created the competition this week screwed up the payout, and they paid out very top-heavy, which is something the PME never does. This next coming week, the first place is $7,500. So I got really lucky. It was an awesome weekend. Me and my little boy, we watched it on the couch, and it was, the roller coaster of emotions was wild. Definitely gonna take care of my kids. My 2-year-old daughter is about to be out of her crib and into a bed, so definitely gonna get her a nice bed. Probably update a little bit of the furniture in our house. We built the house 2 years ago, actually, so we definitely could use some new furniture to go with the new house. But I just want to thank you and Pat. You guys are, someone I've always listened to ever since I started doing PGA DFS. And it really is awesome to be a Nut Hut member. I'm definitely going to be buying some merch because you guys are definitely a big reason that I've been, in DFS golf for so long. Thanks so much. I love the pod. And I look forward to tonight's pod. See you guys later.
There he is, Scotty D from New York. DB Pat, love the pod. Pat pod.
Dude, that was good stuff, man. I'm so happy for you, buddy. I think that's great. And then the fact that you didn't think of yourself first when it comes to purchases. You thought about everybody else in your family and things like that. I think that's good.
Well, he did buy a boatload of Tour Junkies gear today, so I don't know.
I didn't realize, by the way, that because I was looking at the contest and I was like, what's going on with 20,000 to first? I didn't realize that it was a screw up. I thought it was just like the contest all of a sudden got bigger and everything else. But I did notice how top heavy it was, and it's usually not that way for Mayo's contest, which is it's a great one to enter. So when I saw 20 grand, I was like, what is going on here with the 20 grand? So I guess that's not going to be happening anymore.
No, it's already been regulated back to the flatter payout structure this week, man. But dang, Scotty D, we appreciate the love, man. That Scotty's little boy is the same one I was talking about at the beginning of the show that loves singing the song. But just a Nut Hut member with TJ taking little baby girls out of their cribs into their big girl beds. You know what I mean? Like, that just got me. I mean, I'm a girl dad. I got my little girl, and she's my heart. And I'm just thinking, oh man, some little girl's about to get a really sweet little big girl bed because Scotty D hit it in the Nut Hut, and then he put together a great lineup. Won 20 grand. It gets me in the cockles. You know what I mean? Like right here in the cockles. So. Yeah, we appreciate that.
I love hearing that.
Yeah, he's a good dude up in New York. He works at a prison up there in New York, so we appreciate you, man. You stay safe out there. Thanks for listening, everyone. We appreciate you guys listening. We'll be back next week. Don't forget, follow us on Instagram if you're not already, because me and Pat are heading to Hilton Head in just a couple days. It's going to be a great time. We're going to play Harbor Town, by the way. A couple other really sweet courses out there in Hilton Head with Ben and DirecTV Perry. It's going to be a great week. Let's all get some more money this week. Let's win some cash. Let's get 6 of 6 through the cut. Let's lay down some killer bets and do this. And may your screens be green. Thanks for listening to the Tour Junkies podcast. See ya.